I hope I've never jiggled any of those locks. Usually those locks protect places that are also protected by lock lines on the other sides of the
Well, good morning. We'll get started on our meeting today. It's 11 o'clock and our utility meeting update. We're going to kick off with Ms. Beckman.
This utility update is really kind of a high level of what we're doing and who's doing it, so you can continue to get more and more familiar with our people that are on our team now. This is different than next week. Willem Strauss, our controller, is going to do our end of year business results, I think, right? You look surprised. I think that's right?
3rd of November.
Yeah. We'll be doing end of year business results. We can talk about numbers then, but this is more like a kind of a higher level overview. In fact, go to the first slide here. Okay. Let me jump right to the educate part. This is kind of the reason for this presentation, is the education. We want to always be very transparent about what we're doing with our customers, with utility committee, commission, and everybody. And so that's why we want to make sure that we're always up in front of you, telling you what we're doing. And we have been in pieces parts, but I wanted to kind of pull it all together to show you how it is addressing our issues, which is aging infrastructure. You're very aware that we have old power plants. We also have some energy delivery infrastructure that is aging, and not only aging, but in some cases becoming more obsolete relative to what is available now, because things are developing fast in the utility industry. And emerging technology is a good example of how things are developing. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. And then organizational innovation. This is the organization itself. I think we're going to have to do things differently to combat obsolescence, and we may have to consider ways that we do things. And a good example is, I just mentioned emerging tech. Mike Dammer was at the power plant doing great things out there. Scott Bishop was handling emerging tech. Then he moved into energy delivery, AGM, and we really needed somebody that was overseeing emerging tech on a real day-to-day, real-time basis. So we moved Mike actually into Scott's organization, because emerging tech kind of merges better, even though it has a production component to it, it kind of merges better with energy delivery type stuff. So that's a good example of why we need to move forward as an organization. Next. This is just a restatement. Our mission, vision, values, they haven't changed. They won't change no matter, they probably won't change. I can't imagine why they would change, no matter how we change to adapt to emerging tech, obsolescence, address obsolescence and all those things. Our mission, vision, and values are always going to stay the same. So we just wanted to put those up. Next. Here is our makeup on a percentage basis, just to give you an idea of what the organization looks like. We have 369 employees right now, real the field positions, 369 employees in our organization. By far the largest percentage of those is energy delivery, and always has been. Energy delivery is 43.6%. Energy production used to be a few percent higher when we had Macintosh 3. Now that we don't, it is very close to customer service. We have about the same number of people in each one of those organizations. And then we have I have some people that report to me. We have some that don't really fall right into any of those. And then fiscal ops is small in people, but big in impact, because they manage all our money, and that's a big, big deal. So, but I just want to give you a feel for where our employees are. And this is energy delivery. Scott Bishop is our AGM. By the way, I'm going to try to step through this because mine has a lot of slides, and I really want to get to Scott's presentation on Hamilton Substation. But
Although this is very valuable, so no rush.
Well, if you have any questions along the way, just interrupt or ask anytime you like about anything you want to have. We have all the subject matter experts in the room, and I will happily pitch it to them. We were challenged back before Joel left. Scott and his group, Joey at that time, were challenged with meeting some reliability indices, KDK. Sadie, Safety, Casey? Katie?
Sadie, Safety, Katie.
I get all the kids mixed up. They were challenged with meeting some things that at that time they thought, there's no way. They have since, they're on track to meet those and the best historical and best numbers ever on those reliability indices. And of course, reliability is key to our being viable as a utility. We gotta be there. Everybody knows that the minute the power goes away. A couple of things that they spend their time and money on annually, $5 million annual spend on hardening and resiliency, and that's a big one. You know, we want to be able to withstand storms and have a resilient network. And then they also spend $5 million typically on new development, commercial and residential. That's used too to support growth. So those are big things that they do in addition to keeping the power on and dealing with all the, you know, critters and things that try to take it off. They do these kind of things annually. And then Hamilton Substation is a project they've got going right now. It's broken ground. Scott's going to do that in great detail later, so I'm going to move on. Bridgewater Substation, they finished that, but now there is a need to branch out from that and do some circuit extensions so that substation can fill its full capability. There are some Combi Road upgrades. You'll go out there, you'll see some big stout steel poles that are going along Combi Road that will give some good hardening resiliency and good reliability out there.
Didn't you put a bunch of concrete poles out there years ago, though? Don't you have some transmission poles?
There are some on the other side. They actually come up and make the transmission line right there along 33.
Okay.
There is transmission there on the other side.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, okay.
I mentioned earlier, Mike Dammer, who's in the room, is our emerging tech manager, now reports to Scott. One of the things we hired the Energy Authority, T, over a couple of years back to do an integrated resource plan for us. Is very important to plan our assets in terms of our generating assets and our delivery assets so that we can make sure that we keep up with the requirements of a changing grid. And we asked T, who has a lot of experience in this kind of thing, to do some data crunching and look at that and help us come up with that IRP, along with our own folks. Our own folks do the integrated resource plan. And that's going to help us do the best job we can of looking out there and saying, what do we need to do? What does our grid need to look like? And make sure we're on a good path for that. We've talked about microgrid, the Block Energy idea, the one that's in Waimama. Block Energy is the company that is a subsidiary of Emera. And we hope to have that contract, which has been under review, we hope to have that for your review early in fiscal year 2024, hopefully the first quarter, which will be by the end of this year. I think that's right. Is that right? And then we've been working on for a long time trying to come up with a way to have a viable 75 megawatt, which is utility scale solar. We think we've gotten a good ways with Williams because they have a lot of land that's good for that and not really good for, I think, much of anything else. But we have gotten a long way with them. Scott's been working with them for a long time. Mike is working with them. And we think we'll have sometime in fiscal year 2024. I don't want to put too much of a pin on that because I'm not sure when that might finally mature, but we think we'll be able to get a 75 megawatt solar farm. That would be big for us because that put us up around from, I think, about 2% solar capacity right now to maybe 12% or so, 10, 12%. That would be big for us. We'd be a big solar player.
The airport field by comparison is?
It's 14 megawatts on a good day. Today's not.
How many acres would this cover? 75?
About 500.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're working on that. This Opal idea is something that's really exciting. Wheelabrator had a facility out at the landfill, the Polk landfill, and they made waste of power until it got to where it wasn't economical for them to do so. And we fed that was a load for us. This Opal company, which specializes in renewable natural gas, has a process to turn methane into renewable natural gas, and they think that there's enough capacity there to possibly do that for 20 plus years. So, and that's a 5 megawatt load, around the clock, steady 5 megawatt load if that pans out, and we think it will because they have the expertise and they're committed to do that. And we already have a lot of the infrastructure going out there. We have to change around a little bit on the end, but we already have a lot of the infrastructure going out there to serve that. That's going to be a very good load for us, and that's a good piece in a renewable kind of pie. Methane, as you know, is methane is an even more onerous or concerning gas than CO2 is. So if we can turn methane into renewable natural gas, this company can, and we can support that, that's a good thing. Tory Bombard, our AGM, I guess she's still our newest AGM. Over energy production, the demo is still going well out at the plant. The last thing that stood over there that you could really see from over here very well was a water tower. I used to think that it looked like Dr. Pepper Fansville over there with that water tower stand. So the water tower went down last week. It went down. There's still a couple of green stairwells went up to fly ash silos over there. But more and more in that, if you look across Lake Parker, you're seeing more of the white rice building now with its blue stacks than you are anything that used to be there. Most of that stuff is on the ground now and bound up and going off site. And we have booked, I think you told me $1 million?
About $1 million.
About $1 million of that money that was coming from the demolition contractor. And that ended up being, that's a very positive thing. I think overall we end up with 1.2 million. So we get that plant down and actually make money from it. That's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
Places I've been before had to pay big money to get those things taken off. The FGT pipeline we've been talking about for a while, that's needed to be moved for the State Road 33 project. And at about the same time, we decided we would get out of maintaining or eliminate all the risk that go along with gas pipelines. It always gets delayed a little bit, not anything we have much control over, but I think it is on track now for what, Tori?
Well, we just had another meeting because of nesting season not ending until May 15th. There's this eagle on our radio station. And so they were concerned now if we start the work that we could get shut down. So we're looking to move it to, the October when the Unit 5 is an outage. And we've been coordinating with FGOT and with the pipeline.
Okay. So that's moving along, and that's gonna get there. I mentioned earlier the integrated resource plan. Production is a big part of that because it involves production assets. And then coal combustion residuals is the leftover product for all the years of coal operation. That actually is a good transition to the next slide, Mary Beth. Sean McGinnis and Ned Botic, both here, right there. So they're our environmental experts and very good ones. They do a great job in their area. The coal combustion residuals under number 1 there is what we're talking about with closing out that landfill out there, and they are tracking some requirements right now that they want to make sure that we comply with. They are very good at helping us comply with things such that we are complete and total compliance with all environmental regulations, but we do so in the most cost-effective way that we can. Regulatory uncertainty, if you're ever in Tallahassee or Washington or anywhere around our politicians, please continue to emphasize to them that it's uncertainty that really makes it hard for us to do things. It's not so much where something ends up, but it's the uncertainty of you're going to end up here or there, because we have very long planning horizons and a lot of money involved with the projects that we do. So we really need to just tie things down, and then once we decide to go and build something, don't change things on us 2-3 years later and say we need this instead of that. So that's a big deal. I can't overemphasize that. The greenhouse gas rule is a good example. We think that right now the Rice engines are not involved with that and won't be, so we think they're good. Unit 5, we don't know. Is Unit 5 going to have to be limited in operation sometime out 2030 or beyond? We don't know. So that integrated resource plan I talked about, it makes it really hard to do that in our 10-year site plan when we don't really know what we're going to need. Initiatives entering 2024 continue to focus on reducing regulatory burden, and also they're working more in energy delivery now, or focusing on energy delivery because there are environmental issues there too. Traditionally, the environmental focus has mostly been on the power plant and production assets with the big coal combustion residual and all that stuff that's around power plants. But there's a lot of issues with transmission lines, with substations, and energy delivery that need to be addressed too, and they're doing a lot of good work to help us out in that area. Recent accomplishments we have reduced, we've mentioned this before, over 10 years we've reduced CO2 about 50%. We've got a great record, and we're heading in a direction of doing even more of that. And we reduced, I mentioned earlier, they do a great job of reducing the regulatory burden and increasing the cost savings when we comply with these things. Next, please. Customer service. And customer service, the goal overall is to maintain top quartile customer service experience. You got Corey Bush over here. If you have any questions about these initiatives, obviously, we don't want to have a lot of write-offs. Those are not comfortable for the customer or for Lakeland Electric. So we want to keep our write-off low as a % of revenue and keep our business unit costs low. Standardized billing is a great thing. It's hard enough to interpret, a bill that you only look at once a month now. I'm speaking from personal experience, but not with Lakeland Electric so much, but with other bills. I get bogged down if they're too complicated. So standardized billing is a great thing. There's cost effectiveness in that. Retail cash program's a great thing too, in my opinion, because you can go into many retail outlets now and pay your bill while you're going in there to do something else.
How's that going? Like, do we have numbers on that?
I do have numbers. Yeah, we look at it every Thursday, so it's ticking up.
Okay.
We've eliminated 2 kiosks to date. As of yesterday's staff meeting, we're shooting for December to eliminate the other 2 because those numbers are trickling down and they're up, but I can give a report. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we watch it every week.
Thanks, Corey.
Yes, sir.
Large commercial energy intelligence too. This is kind of where customer service, I should have mentioned, overlaps with emerging tech along with production and delivery. Smarter, doing things smarter, allowing people the ability to take control of their own power and do things smarter, more efficient. That's a benefit to everybody. And then mobile app and streetlight reporting is just darn fun. It's fun to have another app that you can play with. And streetlight reporting is a big deal. I became aware of that when I first became interim general manager, is that people calling up all the time, I got a light out, I got a light out over there, I got a light out over there. I said, okay, give me the pole number, and then we'd go and do that whole rigmarole. So I think this is going to help a lot where people can get that information to us quickly and we can get things back on. And then also under customer service on the next slide is marketing. Catherine Lacey is here. There she is. Catherine Lacey. Catherine does a great job with all of these different aspects of marketing. Marketing is a big deal. We're not, we're not marketing because we're in competition with somebody else. We just really want a good, tight relationship with our customers. We want to be very transparent. We want them to know what's going on and to understand it so that they can make smarter decisions about their own power usage and so that they'll know the answers. Sometimes when you see questions come in, it's really clear that the people don't quite understand exactly how you get from point A to point B electrically and how you bill for it and all that stuff. That's very important. And you can see some of the things here: initiatives, integrated public relations, marketing efforts, with the execution of all major Lakeland Electric initiatives. It's very important that they understand, like what I'm going over today. We want our customers to understand, and businesses in the area to understand what we're doing and why. We obviously want customer satisfaction to be very high. We're hitting huge numbers of media, through media outlets. We're hitting huge numbers of people. That just allows more people to more input on what we're doing and how we can do it better. We have tools that track sentiment across digital mentions. And this is a big one because we have a very large Hispanic community, obviously, and we want to be able to communicate with everybody. Spanish website is just perfect. So we've launched a Spanish website so that those folks can get on there and very easily get their concerns to Lakeland Electric. And that's a big deal. So Catherine does a great job in her group. Mary Beth is in that group. You're doing a great job running the slideshow right now. Next slide, Gina Jacoby, AGM Fiscal Ops. This was a big deal. 1 and 3 worked together. Gina and Jeff Stearns, Mike Brosart, their folks at the city did a great job of working with our rating agencies to keep our AA ratings strong. That's a big deal when you go to borrow $154.5 million in bonds. You pay a 0.1% more on that kind of money. That's serious money. So, excuse me. That's a big deal. So, borrowing that kind of money can affect the rating, and the rating changing affects what we pay on that sort of money. So that's a big deal. Gina and her group did a great job on that. Willem, who I mentioned a while ago, Willem Strauss, our controller, found from his experience, he found an opportunity for us to reduce our tax or increase our tax refunds He just found this on his own from his experience, and that resulted in generating $500,000 in tax refunds annually. That'll be an ongoing thing of some amount of money. And then that reduces our annual cost by approximately $200,000. So that's a big deal. Thank you, Willem, for that. And you all know we implemented the phase-in of rate increases, and Gina and Tori did a great 1-2 job on that to keep the rate increases matched up with the gas decreases, so that overall, even though we had a rate increase, overall the impact on the bill was minimized, or in fact went in the right direction, was reduced by those gas prices, fuel rate increase or decreases. Next. Here's some initiatives for fiscal ops. Implement the final phase-in of the rate increase, and that there's one that takes effect real soon, in a few days, and then there's another one next October. Closed books within Gina will have to answer this one if you've got questions. I don't know what we close books now, but closed books within 8 working days using new technologies where appropriate. What do we do now?
We've been averaging about 9 working days. It
Okay.
depends on the situation, depends on if we've got holidays involved. Those make it tough to get to the 9 days. But we'd like to, the sooner we get information in the AGM's and the general manager's hands, the sooner we can make decisions. And so our goal is to get things turned around in 8 working days.
Time is money, and a day might not sound like a lot, but when you're talking about large amounts of money, a day can be a lot, and a fraction of a percentage point can be a lot. So good work on that. With the retirement of the AGM, Gina, knowledge transfer is paramount. She's doing a great job of working with her group to get folks up to speed on the various aspects of what they do in that department. So I'll let you talk to Gina about her retirement plans. Next, Larry Watt. We don't hear a lot from their group until we ask, and Larry just recently came in and did a presentation, but you don't hear a lot from their group, and you're glad when you don't, because, this is compliance, and this is the kind of thing where if you don't hear anything, things are going well. So Larry and his group, which is a fairly inexperienced group, Larry's done a great job, first of all, of filling out his group, because he went for a long time with understaffed, went for a long, long time without a full staff. He's had a full staff, and I should always knock on wood when I say this, but he's had a full staff now for quite a few months.
About 6 months, yeah.
Yeah, about 6 months, full staff. He's working on bringing the individuals up to a level of knowledge, and he's also working on bringing their technology up to a level of maturity where we've got the technology and the people that can make sure that we stay in compliance. Larry and I were talking recently, you can get a cyber attack, and that's terrible, or you can get an attack of some sort, that's terrible. But you can also get audited, and if you're not ready for that cyber attack, that's terrible. So you got to kind of provide 2 levels of protection. You got to be ready, and then you got to be able to actually execute. So these bullet points are some Larry supplied. You can ask questions as you like, but critical infrastructure protection audit was highly successful, not perfect, but highly successful. That's a good thing, as I was just mentioning. The physical security policy and procedure have been implemented. Got an APPA DOE grant, $500,000 for cybersecurity. That's good money. That's good help. And then facility ratings maturation project. I'll have to pitch it to Larry if you want to know about that. I'm not sure I know what that is altogether.
We've been tracking our facilities and their capabilities using spreadsheets that were macro and connected and interconnected. And as we lose people and people change, it became really hard to say what is an accurate number for our capabilities. So we got a bespoke database from a company that provides that type of thing, and we built up the information. This becomes the base or the foundation for most of the work we do in the operations and planning side of operations. How much power flow can go across a transmission line, what we can get through a transformer. It all has to be added up and used to perform the studies that support the IRP studies, the next day studies, and all that stuff. So it's a foundational item, and it's also a high compliance risk. This moved us from high compliance risk to low compliance risk. And it also helps our reliability because we have a good number now instead of a number we believe is good.
Okay, good, thank you. Next is, okay, so here are the two things I talked about, the subject matter expert experience level, he's working on bringing that up, and then cybersecurity, the low maturity level on policy and procedures, they're working on fortifying that too. So you get those two things working together, our policies, procedures, technologies, along with our SMEs, and you've got a really good, they're doing a great job now, but you've got a really good, secure compliance program. Cindy Clemens is not here today, but some high points that she worked on in 2023, this IIJA and IRA, there were a ton of opportunities that went out when the federal government decided to spend all that money on those two programs. And Cindy did a great job working with others to identify some things that we could do with that money and to get those things for us. And of course, that's a work in progress. She also was involved greatly in that microgrid, the block energy project. She actually did a lot of work early on, worked with Mike and worked with Scott and others. And she did a lot of good work on bringing that to us. We've kind of handed that off to Mike as an emerging tech project now, but she did a lot of work in bringing that to fruition. Wrote some new employee policies. That's important. It's important, for just like in Larry's group, it's important for us to have policies and procedures in place that explain what we do. She rewrote, reformatted, and updated the Lakeland electric tariff. And then what we're calling the anti-muni bill from the last legislative session. That's something that we've got to be prepared for, because that is something that probably will come up again. So we're preparing ourselves to make sure that we can make ourselves very viable as a city department, in relation with the city of municipal electric utility, make ourselves very viable and be able to present that that's the best way for us to be. She's doing a lot, has done, and will continue to do a lot of good work on that, I think. Questions?
Okay. I have a few.
Okay.
I have to go to my doctor's pages first. All right, so when we look at the hardening resiliency, just a quick question, is our greatest limitation money or the time to get it done in the course of a year?
I think it's money. So I'm going to let Scott answer, but I think it's a combination of money and with the way our grid is now, it's so intertwined with the infrastructure of the city of Lakeland that it's difficult to go out and just say we're going to harden a big, huge, long transmission line or other line and just get capital money and do it. It's hard to do that. We have to kind of do pieces, parts. But Scott can talk to that.
Our capital budget spend and our resources are highly utilized now. So to put an initiative in place to even try to do some additional infrastructure hardening, I almost have to contract it out. I mean, it's the time bandwidth, it's the resource bandwidth, and 100% agreement with Mike, it's additional monies that we don't necessarily have.
So you think that this is probably the max level of what we ought to be doing?
It's a hearty effort we're putting in.
Okay. And my question is really whether or not you would want additional capacity and the fruit from that or not.
It could be considered.
Okay. But it would require a third party
In the way we're resourced now, it absolutely would.
Okay, so that was one question. That's just good food for thought. Any comments with respect to that question, committee? Okay, second one is under projects for 2023, 2024. Now this is just a personal repetitive request. The Lake Miriam pole move that needs to be done eventually. Are we making that a high priority? This allows for the potential widening.
We have to coordinate that with the road movements too that are happening. So that entire corridor going through there, the county and FDOT have plans on. So for us to make any moves before we have final designs on any of that road stuff, it's a little premature. We kind of want to make sure it's lined up with all the road movement that's happening along there too. So we're coordinating with those folks. So we can't really jump ahead of time until I know what the final design's going to look like so I can start moving.
And we can't move even outside of the window of that entire road movement?
If there's specific one or two poles, we could look at it, but it's going to be redundancy and effort because the whole road change is going to happen and then we can go. Right? So if we can make it a priority.
We haven't.
We're lining up with the FDOT road changes.
Okay, because that is an inevitable area that we have to widen.
It's got lots of problems.
And it's got lots of problems, the county problem. And it just seems to me that I just want to raise that up as an additional. Any other comments there by any members of the committee? Okay. The next one was on the Opal. How does that revenue take place? Is it neutral ideally? Does it cost us anything? Do we gain income from it?
We're excited to have an additional 5 megawatt customer.
Okay.
It's good to just take whatever our load was last year at 5 megawatts.
Okay.
Those are good
Fantastic.
constant loads, there's no fluctuation.
Our few poles that we got to put in are nothing but a win, so we're excited about that one.
Wonderful, wonderful. On, Catherine, this is to you. When we look at videos, and this might be my novice unawareness, do we have videos that show the complexities to customers of what we do and why we do it?
So we do not in a holistic manner, but we do in some individual, where we focused on individual jobs and follow them, but not in a holistic view.
It would kind of be nice if we could zoom out and say, what does your electric bill include and what's involved in that, where you could almost talk about from generation to delivery.
I love that idea.
Little nuances of things so people go, wow.
Yeah.
And because of the complications and the assets exist, so it's really filming them and making it translatable for people to understand the
I think
pieces.
it's a great idea.
Okay, that is it for me. Yes, Commissioner McCarthy.
Just sort of on that note, but different. When you look at regulatory and the anti-muni regulation that we might see again in this early session that starts in January, I think one of the things when I've talked to our legislators and senators is I've really pushed that our utility commission has a wide breadth of experience with regard to utility and power generation or being customers of the grid and our city commission. Do you guys, and this might be for you and Cindy, on the website, do you highlight any of the commission members as far as their experience? And I just think, just about the experience sitting in this room, that might be better when you're looking at regulatory issues. I think one of the pushes from the state is to really capture those munis that don't have a lot of different eyes looking at what they're doing and not representation. So if we can somehow do a PR push on that.
Yes.
If we do a PR push on that so that they can quickly click on to LE, like highlighting Commissioner Madden sits on these different boards, as the representative for Lakeland Electric, and that has, a woman leadership side to it too that's really interesting to a lot of people that might be looking at hurting us. And then in addition, again, just to the experience at the table from our professional sector and from a customer base, and that we also represent outside of our service area is such a big, it is a huge factor for GRU and for Gainesville. So I think if we could highlight that from a marketing standpoint, a PR standpoint, it might help us sort of circumvent early on before session starts and in committee weeks of, hey, you guys can go mess with the other munis all you want, but we have our stuff together.
Well, when they spoke to if I can address that. Sure. Well, I watched Cindy drop down to me the committee in the legislature that was addressing that issue, and particularly it was an Alachua County legislator that brought it up. But the gentleman that spoke, and I forget his name, is the public relations person for the Florida Municipal Electric.
FMEA.
Yeah.
Jacob.
Yeah, whoever it was spoke, and he said, well, Lakeland's far different than any of the others because they already have a committee established, and they do have representatives from outside the area. So we were a one-off, set aside, thank goodness, but we'll be lumped in when they come back with an anti-muni again. So that was my concern, was an Alachua County poor experience with creating a statewide problem. And it gives me a lot of angst when a legislator picks a specific small problem and multiplies it across the whole state. I just,
CRAs and everything.
And Cindy did a great job. Don't get me wrong. I know she's not here. She worked very hard on that issue through the legislative session, and I'm glad she did. But along with Florida Municipal Electric.
I just think it would be a preemptive strike, and I also think that one of the things that we have is a history of that as well. So this is not a new thing. Like, this happened way before any of us were sitting in this room. Lakeland Electric's been really ahead of the curve. And
Well, I can give you some back history on that one.
Well, yeah, but I
Because there was a sitting legislator in the 80s and 90s that is well-known in the community in Lakeland that forced Gene Strickland to move to a utility committee format. And I can do off.
let's not tell them we never had it before. Let's just say we
We've been here a long, no, we've had the utility committee for a long time.
Well, this could be like an About Us
Yeah.
page, that is just like a board of directors, only this is the utility committee, and then they ask the people, and all that, because that's reproducible, and people can take a look at it.
And if I may, I mean, it speaks to, I don't know what the parameters are for members of the utility committee and so on. I know that the commissioners are all involved, but to the extent that the utility committee can continue to be stocked with people who check the boxes that blunt this criticism, all the better.
Yes, that's right, that's right.
Certainly, we could take a look at that. And I will mention that our handouts and leave-behinds that go to all of the officials in Tallahassee heavily focus on that already. So they did receive that last year. But you're right, we could do more in a more public sphere.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. We want to be prepared. Yeah.
It also begs the question of whether or not we ought to think about, even as a committee, increasing the number of out-of-city residents that represent.
I agree.
That are on the, and which we could do. And if that would be helpful, we could do that short term.
We'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at all of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Other comments?
Great points.
Yes, Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mike. On the knowledge transfer topic, and you mentioned Gina retiring, and can you just elaborate on some of those efforts? I know my time on the commission and this committee, Gina, you have been at the forefront of our financial strategy and recommendations, and I know Mike, that what a void that will leave, but how, just share with us some of the things you're doing to prepare for that.
Well, Gina can talk to you specifically, but she has been involving, and she has people in her group that are experienced already, but she's been involving her people in various things that she knows are components of fiscal ops already to get them that experience. Gina, you might just mention a couple of them. We're doing the same, we're trying to do the same kind of thing in every department. We're getting people involved in different things that they had not had experience in before. And we're very open to people who have good experience than moving into an area where they don't have specific experience. Tori's probably a great example of that. She has great overall experience. She has accounting experience. She has a lot of field experience. And she is learning, and she's a quick learner on energy production issues. So we are very comfortable moving people around and getting them the experience, and we're not afraid to move people we know can do a job into an area that they might not be familiar with to get them moved on up in their abilities. But Gina has actually probably done the best job of formally doing that. So Gina, why don't you kind of talk about that?
Yes, what I've been doing is I've been trying to bring in my managers and getting them more involved in what I do. For example, during the bond process, Willem worked hand in hand and essentially shadowed and did a lot of the work associated with the bond prospectus. Kelly Parrish, she worked on the cost of service model. It was the first time she had been introduced to the cost of service model and learned a lot just by working with the consultants and understanding how you go about and doing the cost of service. So just working with the individuals, making sure that I'm passing along that information.
That's good. Thank you.
Another good example, I think, is Corey and Scott. Both come from energy delivery. And although that storm response is primarily an energy delivery thing, Corey is our storm manager. So whenever we have a hurricane coming in, Corey heads that up. And either he or Scott, could step in and do step in and work with each other quite often on those things. So we have, I think, even though we've had a lot of change in the last couple of years, I think we have a pretty good broad experience still where people can step in for others and we don't lose a beat, really don't miss a beat.
I got a question now. Certainly speaking of individual cases, but on the broad spectrum, what's your succession planning like?
the succession planning?
Right.
Well, so for we don't have a document called a succession plan. But for example, to start with me, I think any of my direct reports can step in and do step in when I'm gone. And I'm going to, I plan to rotate them through that. So they go to department head meetings and they represent the department, for example. They may go to conferences when we represent Lakeland Electric. They head up other things. I'm going to be taking a week of vacation in a couple of weeks. Gina is going to be heading up the department during that time. But any one of them could be called on in an emergency to step right into that general manager position, and I wouldn't hesitate at all to have any one of my 4 direct reports step into that. They all have reports, and each one of them could talk individual about their direct reports, but I think they have an ability to have people fill in for others. The electricity, the nature of the electricity, you would know it. If we get to the point we don't have sufficient staff, you'll know about it pretty quick.
Thank you.
So we don't really have that mapped out, and maybe that would be a good idea to do that on a big, like 11 by 17, so you can see everybody.
And I certainly understand from an administrative and I'm more thinking of technological expertise, with that.
Yep.
I mean, do you have training for someone, maybe leaving in the next 5 years or so, someone to come in?
That's a great point. That's a different view, the technological expertise. And we had back about a year and a half ago, we had a big turnover in linemen in energy delivery. And those folks have to be trained up pretty quickly. Scott could talk to you all about the lineman training. But we get them both training that we do out at our training center, which we have a really good training center, in my opinion. We get them that type of training. We also can get them training when we respond, like through mutual aid. We sent crews up to Tallahassee when the last hurricane missed us and went up there. They went up there and then they moved down to around Perry, Florida, and they helped out there. About 19 or 20 of them up there. That's great, I think. That's great training for them to do that kind of work. So we can bring people up to speed pretty quickly on just fundamentals, and then over time. Now the highly technical stuff is stuff that we have to kind of keep our eye on, and that's kind of a different thing. We just have to send people to the training that's available out there for that. Fortunately, high-tech devices don't fail quite as frequently. If they did, it would be a big problem. But that is more difficult because you don't really get a chance to work on it all the time. Like we have lines go out all the time in little small sections here and there. We get more practice on that than we do high-tech stuff. So the high-tech stuff is a little more concerning and problematic. But you can send people. There are schools we send people away and we get people trained. We sent people to Germany to get them trained on these Rice engines, for example. So we do training, and then we do as much OJT as we can, on the job experience as we can, and then that's kind of the way we handle it.
Thank you.
Other questions? On the policy sustainability and the certainty that you desire to have happen, and the CO2 emissions that you kind of inferred maybe Unit 5 is going to be, it has more aggressive discharge than the Rice engines, both running on natural gas. Why is that?
Well, they have about the same heat rate. They both produce about the same megawatts for the gas generator, but Unit 5 is just it's a bigger unit for one thing. I mean, it's 300, anything that gets you in a higher megawatt range puts you in it's a bigger bullseye on you. The Rice engines, if there's specifics, and I would probably let Ned talk about that, but why would they be less subject?
I think, that was EPA's goal with this proposal to just impact large units greater than 300 megawatts, and these main engines are 20 megawatts each, so not big enough, I guess, to be regulated.
Targeted, right? They'd be more reasonable to be in other places as well.
Right.
And so if there were regulations coming on a 300 megawatt unit like Unit 5, what are some of the things that would be alternatives for us or modifications?
One thing we've talked about with Unit 5 is that if it gets limited in 2030, we could reduce the capacity by some amount and run it at a lower capacity. That's not desirable because as you run down in load, you get into less efficient operating, which kind of defeats the purpose to me of.
And it's a turbine.
We could do that. It really is gonna, if the push continues the way it is now, there are people around, fortunately, there are people that are starting to kind of sound the alarm and saying, slow down on this shutting down all these gas units until you can prove that the renewable really can take over. There are some people starting to say that more loudly. I think we're going to need that to happen because I just don't think that renewables are going to replace baseload gas quickly enough that if we keep down that track of shutting down, we're already having people run very tight reserve margins. We're seeing issues in places like Texas that come very close to losing a grid. And, unfortunately, the mentality right now seems to be if we lose a grid, it's going to be our fault because we didn't do something right. And that's another message for, I think, our politicians is, you can't push us into a corner and over a cliff and then say, well, you did something wrong. Face the reality of it. We are moving toward renewables. We are. Other power companies are. People are building renewables. We're experimenting with it, with all sorts of stuff and trying to come up with solutions. But the solutions are this magnitude and the problem is this magnitude. So that's a real scary kind of thing.
David, I was watching your face while he was making those comments. Anything you'd add to it?
The only thing I was going to say is, from the standpoint of emissions of Unified compared to the Rice engine, the emissions limits are almost identical. We're 10 ppm NOx, 14 ppm CO2. We have a formaldehyde limit. So they're going to be very clean running machines by the standards, especially if you go back 20 years. But they're right up there with the combined cycles. So it's definitely the size of the units and just the extra fuel that you have to burn to get those extra megawatts. If the heat rate's the same, if the gas mileage is the same, it just takes more fuel to get more megawatts.
And I think you have a applause or an accolade to be able to talk about with respect to Unit 3 being gone. I'm talking about when we are working at the state level with all these kinds of criticisms. We've done some very, very progressive things and have maintained what is very sustainable today. And so you should be applauded for that.
Well, and that's part of the storytelling of the whole thing is, telling it in such a way that our customers really understand it, but then beyond our footprint, that the people externally understand what the story of LE really is, that we are on the cutting edge, but also in us as policymakers as well, having that conversation with people who are pushing the green entities, which we want to have happen. Nobody's against that, but we can't catch up. There's always the disparity between what you just said, where our solutions are and how many solutions we really need is up here. So how do you get the general public and everyone to understand? And a lot of it's in storytelling.
The other thing
sorry, Catherine, it's back to you.
Well, what's an absorbable rate?
Yeah. The other thing that I've tried to emphasize, and I talked about it at the Fuel Buyers Conference when I spoke there, that Tory is the chairman. I don't know if you're still chairman. They kick you out.
They want me to go out. They want to keep me.
I talked about it there, that I believe very much, we always say, our policymakers always say we're concerned about the little guy, and we'll make sure that the little guy participates in all of this renewable and all this success, and we do. I'm concerned about the people who have a hard time paying their bills now and getting from payday to payday with their bills, being able to run their air conditioning and get out of 98-degree heat like we had this summer that went on for 3 or 4 days with a high humidity, and it was very oppressive. And we can affect the temperature of somebody's house very reliably and very affordably right now. If they keep pushing us down, if they keep getting ahead of things and shutting these plants down, it's going to be more and more and more costly. Right. And we're not going to affect the global temperature appreciably. Okay, so let's say we can lower it from 98 to 97. Great. We can get somebody's house down from 82 to 78 or 75 or whatever, we can affect that. And we ought to focus on that and take care of our customers, all of our customers, those that are most able and least able to pay. And then we talked all along about bridging to the future. We bridge to the future and we keep focusing on that. And that's the way we take care of our customers and we get to the renewable future. It can all be done. We've got to have people stop this extremism, and we're going to do do any of it that know. We got to get people to come together with this.
Great. Any other comments?
He does, I do.
Okay.
He does first.
Go, Terry.
Mike, I like the document very much, and as a newbie, it was informative to me. And I'd recommend that you, at the end of your planning cycle each year, I'd recommend you come to the utility committee and just refresh it, because I thought it was very helpful.
Thank you.
And sometimes I don't remember everything I'm supposed to remember, and this helps me remember those things.
Thank you for that. We'll
Thanks
do
for
that.
that. And I assume we do regulatory days with all the regulators that we're trying to educate, right?
Right.
It's already done. We've got the story to tell. That's all.
Great. Sorry.
The 75 megawatt solar Williams contract, are they building it for us and we own it, or are we gonna lease it? That's part one, and part two was the IRA credits. Do we get that, or do they get that, or how much of that is part of the contract?
They very much wanted us to eventually own it, and we've got a plan in place where we start out, I think, with a purchase power, you guys can know, and then we own it at some point in the future. That's one of the things that's been difficult to work through. I don't know about the credits.
They're getting the credits and they're value adding it back to us in a price.
In the price, yeah.
Okay, so they get it.
That's where they
Dollars,
come.
they're getting the tax incentives in return. We're gonna start with PPA. If we make the choice to buy in at some percentage later, just lowers our cost of capital, and then the energy transfer happens as a result of a PPA. We'll be bringing that forward in December, January maybe. Still some nuance there.
Well, we don't want to exceed your negotiations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the retail cash program, who are some of our partners now? And then as far as costs, do they get like a percentage of the collection? And then is the offset only just the savings from the kiosk, or are we able to, in general?
Okay, so the kiosk, there was an absolute cost. It was running the utility around $26,000 to $27,000 a year in penalties, because there was a minimum usage that had to be for processings and different things. There was a limit we had to make on the kiosk, which we just never would make. So those penalties added up that we ate. Now, there is a $1.99 processing fee. It's the exact same if you do the retail cash. So there's no loss there. We are fronting that cost for the first 6 months of the program for the customers to kind of get them, entice them, so we are eating those costs. And then, the vendors are Walgreens, CVS, there's like 60 total. I can get you a list, but it's 7-Eleven, it's a lot of convenient areas that most people would drive by to go to a kiosk.
Okay.
So, and I've got the numbers, I'll send it out to the committee and the group, broken down, so you guys can see the.
Have you talked to Publix yet, or not yet?
Publix does not usually like those types of programs.
Okay.
They don't want you to pay your bills there. And I don't blame them. It's a lot of those, foot traffic and stuff like that, but it's progressing along. The timeline, I wish it was a little quicker, but with the pressure from the kiosk, it does help move that initiative going forward.
No, I think it's great for a customer service perspective. It's less about the money, but it's more about just giving them more options to pay is always good for us.
Well, it's a safer option than standing out in the middle of the parking lot at a kiosk, frankly. Like I said, when we pitched that in 2015, it was a great transition until we got to the point we're at. Now we have multiple ways with all the Apple Pay and just every way possible. So yeah, I do want to, so I won't get off on too much of that.
Thank you.
All right.
And your auto pay doesn't have a handling charge, and they can set that up on the internet, so.
Correct.
Not everybody's always going to know that they have enough cash in their account to be able to do that.
Correct.
So understand the concern.
And the app is coming.
Good, wonderful.
Yes.
The last thing is on the kiosk pays. Do you track, it's conversion, do you track how near to deadline they are in terms of
Due date.
due date? Yeah, I'm sorry, due date.
I don't think we've ever asked
No,
that.
that's a question.
It would be interesting to know, because how much of that really is an emergency relief
Yeah.
for somebody?
And those numbers, you talk about looking at every customer, Mike was just talking about meeting every customer's needs. That's roughly around 900 to 1,000 of our customers. So we are doing everything we can to meet every one of our customers' needs in every way possible. So while it is a topic of a conversation, is a very small percentage of our customer base that uses those resources. But we want to have them available.
Sure.
So it's our
That's
duty.
900 to 1,000 every month?
Exactly. It's our duty to do that. So.
Yes, Commissioner Reed.
You're not getting rid of the Dropbox, are you?
Dropbox will never go away.
Good. That's my candy there.
There you go. Dropbox will never go away. I learned that quickly. I learned that quickly. Don't mess with the Dropbox.
Okay, other questions? Thank you very much for the report. I think you can see it was very, very well received.
Thank you. Hamilton Substation.
Is it afternoon yet? Did we make it to noon with that one? No, fine. Let's call it good afternoon.
2 years.
Let's call it. So I got 4.5 minutes. I can do it in 3. All right, so Hamilton Substation, it is going to be the 300-pound gorilla in the room for us next year. Not only from build the substation piece, but we got in-house, we're building a transmission line. It's about 7 miles. And it's going to be a lot of effort. I'm going to lose quite a bit of my T&D resource, Highline buckets, and they're going to be down there. You're going to hear about construction going on down there. And you're going to hear about Lakeland Electrics everywhere. So everyone needs to hear this before we get visible. And we've already been on it a year. Go ahead to the first one. All right. So the what, the where, the when, right? What are we doing? Where's it going to go? And when's it going to be ready, right? So we're going to handle those things here. We started groundbreaking August 25th of this year. So right now it's a dirt parking lot, but we're going to move fast on it. Everything's been engineered and designed. We're going to move forward with the construction heavily. You're getting a 69 to 12 kV substation, transmission feeding into it with 3 distribution circuits immediately out there, potential for 3 more. So it's going to be standard footprint. We're adding to that section. We'll eventually get 6 in there, but right now 3. It's on the southeast corner of Drainfield to Hamilton Road. I've got a map. I'll show you where it is. It's
Jack's old stomping ground.
Yeah. It's actually just north of the old English farm. Okay. So this is a team effort, right?
John Warner's property. Everybody knows John Warner.
Team effort. Lakeland Electric, Burns Mac, and Elite Construction. So there's a lot of folks involved in this. We'll detail some of that later. The substation construction is going to be complete, second quarter, probably May timeframe. They're looking at their date right now is May. I can't bring a transmission line to them that fast, so we're going to be a little later in the year before we can actually energize, but construction of the sub is going to be a little in front of the construction of the transmission line. We're working as hard as we can, so maybe third quarter 24, maybe the boys can I can put more resources out there and we can hit it harder. So just for location, and this is like just big location, we know where Polk County is in Florida, but it's on the far edge. This line here is actually County Line Road. Our service territory ends there. We're all the way in that corner because the development down that southeast is insane right now. So we're in front of it, trying to get there before it gets too crazy. Go to the next one. All right, here's the map. Orange arrow shows you exact location of it. Here we are in conjunction with our airport. We are coming out of Drainfield Substation, which is south of here, and if you count the T's, which you can't see, there's 139 65-foot plus steel poles going in the ground, over 7 miles. There's easements, engineering, design, ordering. We'll get into all those pieces later. But this is the layout. That's the new substation. There's your solar, your airport. Coming out of this substation, going to that one.
So you're
West
going all the
Pickett.
county line up and then in?
Yeah, we were gonna try to go up Hamilton Road first.
No, you ain't gonna do that.
And, well, reason being FAA.
Yeah,
So
right.
I'm so high in the ground, you can't land planes, so I had to get away from the airport, then
That's a
go up
problem.
and come back. So there's FAA pieces of this too.
Grandpa couldn't build a 2-story house.
Right,
It was in landing.
right, go to the next one. All right, so this is the same view, that same map, but what my operators see. So what distribution circuits are everywhere, how we're feeding underground to some of the airport. When you see the 3 dots, that's actually a switch, so I can isolate and pick up. The top 2 colors are actually out of Winston, and everything else is Drainfield fed. So by putting Hamilton Road here, it gives me hardening capability, switching, resiliency, load, growth capabilities. It's everything we need to hit that corner right now. Go to the next one. This is it, as operated. Current state of the location. They're using John Deere's, John. So, all right. Go ahead, go to the next one. Sorry. All right. Eye test. Naomi, eye test. Naomi Tillett has been the project manager for the transmission project. She's crushing it. Bobby Shields has been the project manager for the Burns Mac and the substation piece. Absolutely monumental effort for the last. We started back August of last year in this endeavor. Already spent a year before we actually broke ground, so there's been a ton of effort into it. You'll notice some prints, design, drawings. We've got FAA permit that we got to worry about. We'll get one, we're fine. Right-of-way clearing, tree trimming, construction, invoicing, we got bridge crossings, we got easements to get, we got all this stuff, right? We're in good shape. I'm 2 small easements away. I got a corner of Publix I need to, we're working on, we're close. And then I got the County Line Road one, and then I've got a Circle K that took our 3-page document and made an 11-page document, but we'll get there too. All the rest of the easements are gonna be purchased. We're ready to go. Should be getting my first shipment of transmission poles in shortly, and we're gonna get going as fast as we can.
Where are they made?
Louisiana? Texas, Louisiana. Maybe some in Mississippi. There's like some manufacturing in one, and they put them together on the other, and then they start shipping them. So the Cajun boys are gonna take care of us. All right, so on to the next one. This is a transmission pole design. So and this is 65 foot in the air. You see how much we're buried. Now we gotta remember guide wires. So guide wires go perpendicular to a location. We don't put them on every one, but like where you got 2 corners coming in, you need the additional tensile strength or any kind of curve or slight move, we have to guide wires. Also requires easement here too. Yeah. So there's another piece to these things that we got to remember. Go to the next one, and you'll see this isn't a PowerPoint slide built for looks. This is actual designer tool that we use and how we lay all this stuff out. The kind of dotted lines, the kind of fuzzy stuff is actually LiDAR pulled in data. We actually run a vehicle by, light emitting radar actually goes and hits it, and we get a return on it. That information was put into 3D modeling that we use for our designer project so that you see real space before you go out there and dig in the ground. And you'll see guide wires all in the corners of the boxes, right, anywhere we're turning. So the effort isn't just, I got this spot here in the earth, I've got to remember all those other pieces. The substation is right here. I didn't add it because all you would see is a cluster of steel, but it's going to be right in the middle of this. So this effort's huge, right? We're hoping to get TECO to come in the other direction. We're working with them now to come in the other direction and tie us to the grid even further. So we're going to build one. Hopefully TECO brings in the other one. We're in talks with them now, and then we have a real true network model capability of the substation. Go to the next one.
Is that our first TECO Connect?
No, we got a bunch of them. We got 3. Orangedale's got one. What's another one? Another 690. East has another one. There's 3, I think.
Cruise Lake.
Yeah.
Is the other 230? Is it
That doesn't tell you much because we're just saying names out loud. There's several.
Yeah, 2 on the east side, 1 on the south side.
Polk City, yep. Yep. We have several. But anyway, so it kind of, the whole grid's got to tie together at some point, right? So we're doing some of that. All right, so this is part of our IRP, right? We didn't just react to the fact that there's a bunch of growth down there. There really was some debate about Bridgewater or Hamilton, who came first, right? We were talking both of them. Well, Bridgewater first, Hamilton Roads is necessary now. So we probably, either way. But this is part of our plan, 10-year site plan, integrated resource plan. This is happening at the right time. It gives us some opportunity because those roads are moving around a good bit too. There is construction on every corner of that thing, behind it, around it, everywhere. So we need to get in, as the roads are moving, it's kind of working to our benefit because we're coordinating with the county, FDOT, all those things as well. This is a reliability and customer need effort. So not only do we need to be able to meet additional loads in that area, I've got to be able to get all that additional construction, some additional capabilities. It's a reliability play for us as well too. Does increase hardening, does increase mitigation. I can switch around more. I can tie to more substations. I can tie to other utilities. It's a play for long-term strategy and growth. So I don't design any of this. I don't build any of this. I need to thank my folks that have already put this much effort into it. Right, I'm just the talking soup guy. So the planning folks from long ago, right? My engineers, Naomi, Brian, Bobby Shields, our supply chain. We've been killing poor Joanna Parker over there at the warehouse. it's been a tough environment to be in. And then to add a giant capital construction project on it, she's been fantastic. She's under the gun there too. Any of the support folks that have been here getting us this far, we got a dirt pile right now, which is fantastic. But to get to the dirt pile phase is a lot of effort. And I just want to be appreciative of them before we actually start the digging holes, setting poles, stringing line. And that's coming real soon. So as we see it, please reach out to me if you're getting concerns, roads are closed or whatever it may be. Folks can start, once they start seeing, they start calling. So I wanted this in front of you. Reach out to me if you got any concerns or any issues. Are there any questions?
69 kV substations, is that standard?
That's our build. That's our standard build.
And then you can do multiples of that?
Yes.
If you needed more?
Yes.
So when you see large areas like that, that's like 469 kVs, like in Atlanta or someplace where you...
You'll see, well, we have 230 kV, which is the big stuff. Those are the big lines you see on I-4, kind of wraps around the top. A lot of utilities will use 115 as well, but 115/69 is in the transmission space.
Okay.
We try to stay below the 100 mark for compliance reasons, but 69 is great. We don't have any of our 69 network is robust, it's capable, it's got lots of bandwidth on it, it's hardy, and it allows us to operate without getting too big and expensive.
You're not wide enough to put another 69 next to it, and that may not be a need because you could locate that somewhere else.
It's going to have to be somewhere else because it's all bought up around us now.
Yeah, okay. And what is the reference to the 12 kV, the 69?
12 kV is the distribution. That's what's in your neighborhood.
Okay.
So as we come underground in your neighborhood, that's 12 kV. Once it hits the 10-to-1 transformer, you get 120 at the house.
Thank you.
His is underground?
His is.
Yeah, our neighborhood was before. I don't understand these wires that break through.
It wasn't done for him, it was done pre him. Yeah.
The demand down there is being driven by all the industrial construction up and down that.
Airport's growing, right? The new Publix went out down there, and now there's more industrial load and growth coming in.
The warehouse is being built. I mean, every corner's got a warehouse being built on it.
It does look like it.
And, again, we just go to the county line, but even if you go across the county line, if TECO has a problem, they're gonna need some of our power.
That's right, back and forth. County line's been crazy, right?
Oh, it's hard.
Crazy. So that tie and that relationship helps us to kind of make that connection, but it's just going to continue to pop. That airport's driving the growth, and here it comes. So we're getting in front of it.
Good. Other questions, comments from committee members?
I got a comment.
Yes, sir.
And I understand, we said something about Cumbie Road a minute ago.
Yep.
And even though Lakeview may be a widening project, Cumbie Road has been a bottleneck for years. And the transmission poles there are keeping it from being widened anywhere along because it's so narrow. Well, you got residential easements that are right there. And
you'd have to acquire all them too.
So all the way from Crystal Lake, basically, all the way up through the railroad tracks that we own is almost impassable to widen. So the reason I was asking about the concrete poles, because some of those are concrete poles on the east side of the roadway when they put them in 20 years ago.
We had a Cumbie Road project, the steel poles that are...
That's the other side.
Yeah.
But that's Crystal Lake to...
Crystal Lake on the other side. So we got infrastructure kind of on both sides of that road.
And that's what I'm saying. We're now locking down the ability for easements to be bought.
We're far enough off the
right away,
west.
excuse me, right away to be bought.
On the east, if they came in with road widening, I'd have to get the hell out of the way.
Right.
And I would.
And that's my whole point is, if they came in with road widening, decided they needed Cumbie Road, DOT decided Cumbie Road needed to be 4-lane, we'd have a huge expense to move our infrastructure.
Saddle Creek wasn't there at the time, and that's even making it worse.
Well, it's part of that's my point. It's part of the deal.
Yeah.
My concern is.
Yeah.
My other statement is I just want to say from a personal standpoint, Corey told me a long time ago, don't call when there's power at your house that goes out, because we know about it.
It's a fair statement.
A residence behind me has a huge shop, and it burned the other night. And it backfed into a secondary, didn't go into a primary, but backfed, went to the transformer, popped the wire in my backyard. Had a service truck out there within 30 minutes of the fire service showing up. He said, I can't handle it, I'm gonna call out a pole crew. 8:30 at night, Friday night, they called out a pole crew. By 10 o'clock, we were back in power, fire department gone and everything else. They couldn't get in the alleyway because the fire crew was there with a water line. And after the water line was gone and everything, the line crew came in, boom, 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 back to the house, is where they went. And I was there when they were reconnecting the wire, and training came in right there. Because there was a rookie in the bucket, I don't know his name, but a rookie in the bucket, but there was a skilled guy on the ground that was telling me exactly how to do it, put it back together, and they were playing with each other like crews do. But it was just a super quick response to a power outage in a little bitty community. So thank you.
Great.
Love you too.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
If microgrids become part of our infrastructure in the future, are we considering factoring how much it would save us from not having to buy right-of-ways?
Yeah, so that's all part of the total cost of energy, right? So instead of having to build transmission lines and spend generation and buy fuel and build more substations and get distribution lines to the customers, as I build, that microgrid covers all that cost, and I don't have all that additional total cost of energy to get always a factor from top all the way to bottom. So when we're looking at this model, it has a slight premium to it now, but long-term, I can forego the cost of capital with infrastructure and big steel, and then serve the customers at the site. So it's got to be factored into our decision-making process. 100%.
Other comments, questions? Any other topics you want to cover today, sir?
No, sir, we're good. Today
Great
we just
meeting,
need
thank you very much, and I appreciate you.
Contracts.
Oh, yeah.
Ramona's turn.
Somebody forgot part. Yeah. I'm sorry. Later or?
Hang in there.
Next week?
One of the items that we have is actually a resolution that the commission will take up on Monday. That's the environmental compliance cost charge. And I think the utility committee actually saw a presentation. I think Kelly Parrish gave that presentation to the utility committee last month on September 5th. So this is just the resolution coming forward for that, and this is a reduction in the environmental compliance charge. So if you have any specific questions about the charge itself, Kelly's here to answer any questions regarding that.
Are there any? Okay, number 2.
Okay.
Which is C1.
The other, first contract item we have is a change order 1 to our existing agreement that we have with KC Industrial for the underground general work for the Rice project. The commission approved the agreement with KC back in August of 2022. At the time that the commission approved this agreement, there was a contingency built into that overall cost that was to cover the cost of any modifications that could occur and during the course of the project. That contingency amount that was built into that contract was $505,117. However, that amount was not sufficient to now cover the cost of the project. So that's what this change order is contemplating. Scope modifications, those are related to the design changes that occurred, and also some unforeseen conditions that they discovered as they were going through the project, and that related to underground piping that they found, and also some contaminated soil that required remediation that needed to be taken care of. And also during that time period, we went through 2 hurricanes, Ian and Nicole, so there was some requirement to secure material and equipment out there. And the other aspect of this change order also includes switching some of the engine pad assembly scope of work, which was actually going to be done by Rayco, which was our underground contractor. That cost was moved over for Casey to do it for efficiency purposes and because their crew was already out there. So the total cost of this change order is $1,019,645. That does include that $505,117 contingency that was contemplated as part of that as well. So the total revised contract price for the underground general work that Casey's performing out there for the project is $17,856,887. That change order is included in the total project cost for the Rice project. And of course, that's also funded through our bond issuance for that.
Move for approval.
Okay, the motion to approve. Any
Second.
questions? And then second.
Second.
Question from,
The RACO component, has that been removed from RACO's contract?
Yes, sir. So all that's done is, it's not an increased cost, it's just been carried over to Casey.
It's a swap,
Correct.
basically. That's a
Correct.
swap component.
Yes.
So RACO's contract has been reduced by that $1 million, whatever that number was.
It was $482,299.
Ramona, excuse me, Rayco's contract is not going down by that much.
Well, I think there
because-
are other costs that are.
Because we did
yeah.
that swap before the Rayco did the bid. It was scope that we pulled out of above ground contract, and we put it in the below ground contract because of, they were doing the earth moving at the time. So the Rayco contract will stay the way it is. It was just reduced by that extra scope that we didn't have to do at that time.
And that was just added then to Casey's. Yeah.
okay, other questions or comments?
I've got a question.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Sims.
Now I'm confused. How much is the net drop of the contract? Or is there a net drop?
This is the change order to increase the contract price, the total contract price.
Okay, but I understand that Rayco,
17 million.
what was the original for April for Rayco?
This contract with Casey, the total amount under the RACO, are you talking about just the engine assembly pad portion?
Right.
That was $482,299. That came under this scope of work for
Well, I
Casey.
mean, what I'm confused about is that he mentioned that the change did not occur, or the amount that you indicated was not accurate. I just want to know what the true picture is.
So what happened here was, under the initial scope, we didn't have the information to build the engine assembly pad. When we sent out the bids to do the below ground contract. And so we did not include that in the below ground contract. During the course of executing the below ground contract, we got all the specifications to do it. And since it was mainly moving dirt and civil type work, which Rayco was staffed up to do, no, I'm sorry, I said wrong, Rayco, what Casey was staffed up to do, we changed the scope with them to allow them to do that work to build the engine assembly pad. Originally, we had planned on, since the spec wasn't ready when the below ground spec went out, we originally planned on pushing that to the above ground and making that an above ground task. But we pulled that out of the above ground task because we'd already done it within the below ground. So the quote that Rayco gave us never ever included the engine assembly pad because we pulled it into and did it under the Casey bid.
I think I understand.
Well, they changed vendors because they were there. Well, if you have other questions, it's all right. So that created a $482,000 credit, correct, from one, on the $1,019,000.
That's
David
part-
said no.
No, it's not a credit, it's all included. They're broken down, the scope changes, the unforeseen conditions, and then the engine assembly pad, that's not a credit. It just, I wanted to break those out so you could see that the total cost, what the total cost of the change order was. Yeah.
So Casey has been off-site since April 26th. They completed their work. They had a couple items that we're still following up on. And these change orders have been in the works, and we've been negotiating with them because they tried to charge us things that weren't allowed by the contract. And Ramona and I had worked with them, and we've been successful in making sure that those charges got cleared. And this is just to clear the contract so we can get it closed out. And then as they finish their work, we can finalize the payment and close out that portion of the contract. And like I said, the misunderstanding here for the engine assembly pad, as far as just removing it from one vendor scope and putting it in another vendor scope because of the timing, that's all it was. And so it came up that we weren't going to put it in the other vendor scope because it had already been done. That's all it was. And we just chose to do it early. That's all That's the lion's share of it. There is no credit out there to award to anybody. It was money that we were going to have to pay, and we paid it on the below ground contractor instead of on the above ground contractor. It was just a choice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, if there are no other comments, we'll take a vote, and because we have a motion on it, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. There's no opposition. Okay. Unanimously passes.
The next item, this is an annual agreement for supplemental skilled labor mechanical for Lakeland Electric's different plants. Each year, we use skilled labor that's not in our own workforce. This is supplement what we, the folks that we have out there during increased workloads, during outages, and we need the extra personnel to help us with that. This one is particular to mechanics and millwrights that are needed on an as they are procured on an as-needed basis to do the work. We went out for bid back in August. We had 2 firms respond. Those were JKF Maintenance and Construction from Bartow and TEI Construction Services from Duncan, South Carolina. Those will be the 2 contractors that will provide the skilled workers. It's a 1-year initial term, and thereafter, they're annual contracts that can be renewed each year for 4 additional 1-year terms. The total estimated cost of first-year supplemental labor for mechanical is $200,000, and that's included in Lakeland Electric's FY24 budget. And then it's estimated cost of $200,000 for the remaining 4 years on a 5-year contract. So the total cost is estimated to be at $1 million. Again, that's just an estimated cost. It could be less than that. And that, of course, will be subject to commission approval of the budget in subsequent years as well.
It could also be more.
It could be more, but if it's more, it would come back to the commission because we're
That's our cap.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve? Commissioner English and a second by Commissioner McLeod. Discussion.
The South Carolina office, I think I read somewhere part of the contract is they have to have an office within 70 miles of, do they have a sub-office?
They have a local presence. Scott is not Falcon.
I'm here.
Sorry, Miles.
And I don't have that answer handy, sir. I'll have to get back with you on that. TEI, that is the outfit, if you recall, years ago, did our LP evaporate, a large scope of work, and they have been to our plant regularly. They're fairly responsive, but they are all over the state likewise. But I'll have to follow up with you on where their local office is.
To follow up with the contract, I mean, and
compliance.
Yes, sir. As far as compliance with the contract, they're listing home office, I'm assuming, in South Carolina. The other firm is in Bartow. I got no problem with the Bartow office. Sure. It's within the contract scope of the area. But, I think it's for responsiveness is the general geographic requirement.
Understand.
And it doesn't mean that you're going to get the employees from within 70 miles, but they have to have a presence in an office. It's part of the contract. So I'd like to know where their sub-office is if South Carolina is their primary office. On that one and the welding, because they got both contracts. Right. So.
Good point. Thank you. Any other questions on this one? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes.
All right, the next item is a task authorization with Miller Electric Company. This is for security systems to be installed at the Rice project. In December, we approved a continuing contract with Miller, and they are to provide the standard security systems that include access control and video surveillance for the Rice plant. They will begin installation of the work in spring of 2024 with completion date estimated to be in June of 2024. The total cost of the work is $147,767.46. That also is included in the Rice project budget, which is funded through the city's energy system revenue bond as well.
Motion approved.
So moved.
Second. Okay, Commissioner McLeod, and discussion by committee members.
Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes.
The next item that we have is an agreement with Polytech Services. This is for the purchase of direct current DC system batteries, chargers, and uninterruptible power supply for the RICE project. This will provide power for the plant and engine controls if power fails, or alternate power. In July, the city's purchasing department issued bids seeking qualified vendors. We had 3 responses. Polytech, after evaluation by the city staff as well as our consulting engineer on the project, Sargent and Lundy, determined that Polytech was the most responsible bidder that actually came in with the lower price. If the commit in the agenda packet, you'll see that there was an initial bid price and an adjusted bid price for all of the contractors. Polytech's initial bid price was $431,318, and then that adjusted bid price came in at $517,128. The next low bidder, which was actually a little bit less, was Alpine Power Systems that came in at $479,123. However, when all the bids were evaluated, it was determined that Polytech was the only contractor capable of providing a complete package of services. Alpine couldn't provide specific requirements in accordance with the specifications that were the switchboards, the distribution panels, and the battery disconnects. So that is why Polytech was determined to be the most responsible bidder. In addition to that $517,128 adjusted bid price, there's also an additional cost of $7,500 that was added, and that amount was added to all the bid prices by the various contractors, and that covers the cost of a construction bond, which is equivalent to the value of the contract. Once the equipment is scheduled to be delivered, which is in June of 2024, our above-ground contractor, Rayco, will be installing the battery systems. Polytech will provide all the materials and equipment in accordance with the specifications, so the total purchase price is $524,628. That is included in the RICE project budget as well.
Move to approve. Motion approved, and a second?
Second.
Second, okay. What kind of, how many times could this start engines?
Well, the first thing is the engines start with air. So we have enough air that without any electricity, I have enough air bank that I can start every engine at least twice. And obviously, once I start an engine, I can recharge my air. So that was one of the requirements.
Right.
The batteries here, the main thing is providing the power to the control system and the time period. So we're looking at a time period of 12 hours of continuous power. That'll give us time to start our emergency diesel generator to maintain power to the site, and that keeps the controls up, and that keeps the equipment that monitors, operates the solenoid valves and things like that there to allow the engine to start.
Sure, so once you get started, you can create your own power, so it's not an issue. Okay. Questions, other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes.
Yes.
The last agreement that we have is a natural gas sales agreement with the city of Blountstown, Florida. Hopefully I'm saying that, Blountstown, Florida. Blountstown. This is a prepaid natural gas agreement for the purchase of 5,000 MMBTUs of natural gas per day. The intent of this agreement is to obtain not only savings from procuring the natural gas from Blountstown, but it also provides adequate insurance and reliability in terms of having that natural gas during peak periods of use. If you recall, I think it was back in 2021, the City Commission approved a very similar type contract with the City of Leesburg. So pursuant to this contract, this represents about 11% of Lakeland Electric's daily natural gas supply. So with regard to the prepaid natural gas contracts that we have in place, those constitute approximately 32% of our daily MMBTUs required to generate the power for us. Staff estimates that the agreement will be in effect for an initial term of 5 years, which would be effective April 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2029. And in accordance with the agreement, the savings that Lakeland Electric will receive will be 80% of the minimum discount rate of 45 cents, which equates to 36 cents per MMBTU. The city does have the ability to terminate that agreement upon 1-year termination notice prior to the expiration of the initial contract term. However, if the city elects to terminate that prior to that initial term, the city will be prevented for a 2-year period from entering into any of these types of prepaid natural gas type agreements. And there is also a protective floor of the lowest discount that we would receive would be 17 cents, which would be during this remarketing period that will occur. As well as, so the estimated minimum savings to the city based on this prepaid natural gas contract is $3,286,800 over a 5-year period. And Tori Bombard is here. She can get into the specifics of the transaction, but it's a win situation, I think, for Lakeland Electric in terms of being able to get the savings out of this contract.
$3,286,000 savings.
5 years.
Yeah, over 5 years. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Moved in a second. All right. And discussion by any members of the committee? Yes.
What if Belltown can't get their financing?
It's contingent on them being able to get their bond issuance.
Do we have the right to buy it from somebody else?
We'd have to do another transaction with someone else.
Let me get that down here. We're a member of Florida Gas Utility, which has 23 little cities, okay? And when you do a prepaid deal, you're signing up for 30 years, okay? And so the reason we're only getting 80% of the discount is because we're using another little city. They're going on the hook for a 30-year deal, okay? And so they're like our silent partner. They're saying, I'll sign up, and for doing that, they're going to get 10% of it, and the other 10% goes to Florida Gas Utility, because really Florida Gas Utility, these little cities, they don't have a gas department, is buying their gas for them, but it helps give them some money. So they go on the hook. So the only other way to do it prepay is for me to come in here and do a bond deal, okay? And so if they were unable to get the financing, then this deal just goes away. If we can't get this 45 cent, the deal goes away, okay? So we're coming to you now because we're going to go out, in the next 2 weeks and because the markets look good, to be able to get the spread. And the whole reason we want to do this is because normally I can only get you between a penny to 5 cents. That's why when I went before to you with the Leesburg deal, we were only getting 25 cents, so now we're at 45. And we do think it's going to be greater. But I'm just staying at 45 right now. So it just allows us to, because with these type of deals, what happens, anywhere between 5 years to 7 years, you have to go back to market and do a repricing. They don't just stay for 30 years. And so if at that time, when you go back to remarket, they can't get the minimum of 17 cents, the deals go away. Because the market, all prepaid is the difference between a municipal bond and a non, the spread. It allows the munis to go out there and do a bond, to give it to a vendor so that they can use our rate and get their financing lower. So that for us doing that, we get the discount on the gas. So they're just a name there. It could be that the 23 cities, Florida Gas Utility is trying to spread the wealth. But, Leesburg got it last time, now Bloodville. But they're signing on the dotted line, it's basically.
Could be Sebring in 5 years now.
It could be somebody else, but they don't really do anything. I deal with Florida Gas Utility. They're just willing to take the risk because they're looking at us saying, hey, there's 20 other 3 cities that Florida Gas Utility buys gas for, so if Lakeland didn't need it, then that gas could flow to somebody else.
Well, then thank you for finding these things, Troy. That's so important because, pardon?
Whose bond is it?
It's Blunsville's.
Okay, Bluntstown's going to have the bond. Okay, what is their bond rating?
BB, it's BB, it's BBC or something like that, I think.
I'm not sure what the bond rating is. I mean, most of all the information that they've already been to their commission. Like today, Gina and I are doing a call with Black Belt for the rating. They wouldn't even be considering them if they weren't where the rating should be.
I just wondered what their rating was going to be because of the cost of their bond in order to buy the gas. They've got to factor in what their interest rate is going to be on their bond. So if they have a lower than AA, it's going to cost more than what it would be if we bonded it. I mean, it's a play on words is really what I'm saying. But if because it's a smaller municipality, much smaller. If you've ever driven through Bluntstown, don't blink because you're going to miss it. I don't think they're a AA, so I think their bond cost is going to be more.
But because they know that the gas is flowing to us and that we're AA. It's really the discount that we're going after.
Yeah.
And if they didn't get it financed, we just
We don't do it.
We don't do it.
We don't do it.
So we don't lose, we don't have vulnerability, we just have savings potential.
I mean, it's true, we could get bigger, but then we'd have to be on the hook, you know.
I got you.
And that could hurt our rating that Gina just so.
And it complicates it.
Gotcha.
Any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. So the committee unanimously passes that one as well. That, I believe, is the end of our meeting. So double checking. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. We're adjourned.